Well, it has been a while. A couple months ago, I decided to check out a certain shoot-'em-up game by the name of Len'en. I thought it was pretty fun, and it was a pretty solid game if I do say so myself. That is why today we are jumping right back into the swing of things. Should I have done this video sooner? Maybe, but either way, I'm here today to bring you all along on a ride. I won't dilly-dally the intro like I usually do since I know what you're all here for. This is my first experience playing the second Len'en game, Earthen Miraculous Sword. So I just want to preface things by saying I'll be switching up the format again slightly for this video. If you all came from my last Len'en video, you'll know that I decided to tackle the bosses one by one. I won't be doing that this time, and I'll get to why later. On the other hand, we'll be going through my very first run of the game before I give my full opinion and overall thoughts, so here we go. I decided to run with Kuroji. I don't know if they're particularly good, but they're new playable characters, so I thought why not. I don't really have much to say about stage 1, to be completely honest. The mechanics are pretty much exactly the same as the first game. You have your normal bombs and your flash bomb. There's this flower thing on the side that multiplies score, but it was obviously pretty useless to me. The stage 1 boss, like the last game, is a lot harder than what I'm used to with Touhou. There's some streaming patterns, relatively dense random shots, and just stuff you wouldn't normally expect from a stage 1 boss, but overall, it wasn't too bad.
The stage 1 bosses are a lot more menacing than I remember them being.
Where this game's difficulty really spikes though is stage 2. God, stage 2 is hard. Now again, I'm probably just bad, but god, these patterns are dense. I guess my words from last video talking about lackluster stages somehow reached the past because they went ham with these stages. The enemies still shoot very fast bullets, but they move in really weird ways in this game, making it pretty hard to actually shoot them down. Stage 2 boss doesn't get any easier as well. As you can see, they throw my absolute worst nightmare at me. Curvy, goddamn projectiles. And I really wasn't having it.
I don't like the way these are moving.
Stage 3 felt a lot more manageable to me than Stage 2, both the stage and the boss. The stage was still pretty hard, if I'm being completely honest, but Stage 2 was really just something else. The boss for the most part is pretty easy, save for a couple of spells that I have trouble with. There's a lot of phases and the fight is pretty long, but overall it's nothing too bad. Stage 4 unsurprisingly ramps up the difficulty even more. The projectiles are lightning fast, seem to be pretty random, and cover most of the screen. Like Stage 2, the enemies move really weird and are very hard to catch, so I ended up dealing with a lot more bullets on my screen than what I would have preferred.
What the fuck? Stop!
I eventually got way too overwhelmed with all the junk on my screen and ended up biting the dust once I reached the boss. And then I cracked. Yes, go laugh at me in the comments or whatever you guys do, but the rest of this video will be in fact played on the light difficulty, meaning I get a lot more resources to work with. From what I know and what seemed to be the case, light mode doesn't actually affect the difficulty of the patterns at all. It just gives you more room for error with the resources, so yeah, there's my excuse. Anyway, let's talk about the game. It's hard. Now, it has been a couple months since I last played Len'en, but there is no doubt in my mind that the stages in the game are at least twice as hard as the ones from the first game. I seem to be getting walled constantly, and like I said, the bullets move at light speed and come out of nowhere. Every bullet just gets barfed at you, and I mean literally barfed. Just entire super dense walls show up out of thin air, and I really struggle to keep up sometimes. Does the increase in difficulty make the stages more fun for me? No, not really. In fact, the stages feel just as lackluster as the first game. A lot of patterns are repeated, and it just feels like I'm playing through the same stage throughout the entire game. It kinda just felt like they made stage 6 and decided to use that same level for the other 5 stages. I read in the comments that the person behind Len'en, Jinx, cannot make stages for the life of them, and I can definitely see that being the case. The game overall is just way harder than the first one. The mechanics are exactly the same, but they really wanted you to have a bad time with the patterns. Even as much as I hated UFO, I feel like I had a much easier time dealing with the stages there. Now, I don't know if I'm just being a big baby or whatever, I probably am being one, but I really feel like the stages are a bit overkill in this game. Even just looking at stage 2, you can probably tell it's pretty tough. I don't think I made it through a single stage without bombing, and if it wasn't for light mode, this video would have probably never come out. Anyhow, I've ranted about the stages for way too long now, let's talk about the bosses. Now, if you remember in the intro, I mentioned that I wouldn't be discussing the bosses one by one this time, and that is actually because I think the bosses are a lot weaker in this game. In the first game, all of the bosses were pretty unique. They all had some sort of gimmick to set them apart from one another. In this one, they felt a lot less memorable to me. Now keep in mind, I'm not saying they're bad. In fact, I think they're pretty comparable to majority of the bosses from Touhou. It's just that the first game set a really high standard for bosses in my opinion that this game sadly wasn't able to deliver on completely. Off the top of my head, I could really only remember what 2 of the bosses did. I remember stage 5 boss because of these weird Walter things they spawn on the screen, and the other boss that sticks out to me is the stage 6 one because I thought the slicing gimmick was pretty cool overall, and they had this attack.
Not choke, please. What am I supposed to be? What is a man to do against that? Oh god, what? What do you do against that?
Again, I don't think the bosses are bad. In fact, I had next to no frustration with any of these bosses. I thought the patterns were pretty solid, pretty fun to dodge, and pretty fair. But for me, inoffensive doesn't necessarily mean good. I don't know if anyone shares this sentiment or I'm just stupid and unable to see the true beauty behind these bosses, but they really didn't do anything to stick out, at least not in my opinion. I know it's not really good to compare, but just looking at the bosses from the first game really makes the gap in quality apparent. Like you had Kuroji just flipping stuff around, Klaus sucking you into a black hole, or just Sobakura's monochrome aesthetic. On top of that, the boss patterns just seem to be a spew of random projectiles a lot of the time in this game. Now I'm not sure if people think that I heavily dislike random projectiles due to my distaste for UFO, but that's not really the case. I think they are good to a certain extent, it's just that having to chase a UFO through them felt like a suicide mission to me. Going back on topic now, I'm okay with random projectiles, but in this game it kinda just made things boring. Instead of having an intuitive pattern to dodge, some type of streaming or just whatever, it all just boils down to don't stand where the bullets are. One thing worth mentioning though is this imperishable night dive finish Yaoroshi had. I thought it was pretty cool, but it really doesn't change the fact that the bosses are very painfully average.
Never mind, what is this? It looks like interesting. I hope that's not what happened. Please say I still win. Oh, there you go. Okay, well I did unlock extra. Probably won't do it now. I might save this for another time. But yeah, you know, tell me down in the comments if you want to see extra. Now, I won't lie, I'm just a tad bit disappointed with this game. Before I say anything else, I just want to say that yes, I can hear you all screaming in the comments, oh, it's because you played on light mode. You didn't get the full intended experience, or something along those lines. Yes, maybe that is the case, but to me the difficulty just felt kinda lazy almost. And having less lives doesn't really improve the patterns much now, does it? I just want to make it clear that I don't think this is a bad game. I still think it's great, but just after playing the first one, I probably set my expectations a bit too high. Anyhow, I still very much look forward to playing the rest of the series, since I have heard very good things about the upcoming games, and hopefully I'm not setting my expectations too high again. I'd like to think of this as the Dark Souls 2 of Len'en, still solid on its own but doesn't hold up compared to its predecessor, but I'm sure this game will grow on me in the future anyway. Despite this somewhat negative review, I hope you all enjoyed the video still. Do expect more to come from the future, and hopefully I can actually get these out more often. But you know what, this month is a double upload, so consider yourself lucky. But yeah, that's all for me today. Like, comment, subscribe, yada yada, you know the drill. Till next time, thanks for watching.